Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 1257, introduced by Representative Thorson and other House and Senate sponsors. House Bill 1257 is a bill for an act to amend and reenact subdivision A of subsection 2 of section 23-15-01 of the North Dakota Century Code relating to fireworks permitted to be sold. Mr. Speaker, your Government and Veterans Affairs Committee recommends do not pass on House Bill 1257 by a vote of 9 yeas, 5 nays, 0 absent, and 0 not voting. Mr. Speaker.
Representative Zeiser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly, I think we ought to start out the 11th order with a big bang. Actually, it'll be a small bang and kind of a sizzle up in the air. This is about pop bottle rockets. Your Government and Veterans Affairs Committee voted a 9-5 do not pass out of committee to the full House. Pop bottle rockets often is seen as a limit on civil liberties, but in fact it's actually a protection, a civil protection for one's health, more so than it is a civil liberty protection. People, bystanders, innocent bystanders are often, if not most often, the people that are injured with pop bottle rockets. And people talk about wearing goggles and protective glasses, but very few people do that. In fact, there was an ophthalmologist that testified at our hearing that for some time represented all of western North Dakota. Now that it's been populated more, he pretty much, his practice is limited to the Bismarck area. His kids used to have to wear goggles and protective glasses, and he joked that his kids were embarrassed by the fact that they had to wear those protective glasses and none of the other kids had to, but they did have to wear them. Actually, I feel that civil liberties, there's a little different definition of civil liberties. I think if you go so far as to inhibit another person's civil liberty by limiting their liberties, you in fact are really digressing because you're taking their liberty away. For instance, if what you've done inadvertently or accidentally caused somebody to lose their eye, I think that's really a problem in terms of civil liberties. So when you think of civil liberties, think of that as well as the injury aspect. Pop bottle rockets, one of the reasons they're so inexpensive to purchase is they have very inconsistent trajectories. They might go any which direction, up, down, sideways, bounce off buildings, floors, cars, you name it. They are very, very unpredictable. The Consumer Product Safety Commission has said that last year there were 9,000 injuries to the eye due to fireworks, and I think that's pretty substantial when you think of these kinds of little toys, I guess we call them. And often we do it as a prank and as a kid think you're having fun until somebody gets hurt. We, in this body, we're probably all insulated from being injured by a pop bottle rocket. But I myself know that I was kind of a nasty kid in my teenage years and shot those pop bottle rockets at I guess what they call pop bottle rocket wars. And I am ashamed of that behavior, but I guess it's pretty common for that age. Another aspect is that they are so inexpensive. And one of the reasons they're so inexpensive is they don't have a trajectory that can be predicted. In testimony from the folks, the ophthalmologist and other folks, he talked about that, again, very few people within that industry, in fact, no one within the industry is supportive of pop bottle rockets because larger rockets that have a trajectory that's more consistent, people are less opposed to. For instance, the fireworks you see at a fireworks show, they're not nearly as dangerous. And the other aspect, have you ever thought of what it's like to have a patch over your eye? Try just picking up a pencil or a pen or do something simple with a patch over your eye. then think about trying to do some sporting event or driving a car with a patch over your eye. It's extraordinarily difficult. I'll bet most of us haven't done that. And without droning on, I'll call it quits here because I'm sure there will be some back and forth. I'm just going to say I think it's with a 9-5 do not pass. I was surprised by the strength of the do not pass vote, and this committee strongly urges a do not pass, and we would hope that the body would concur. Thank you.
Is there any discussion? Representative Thorson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly. I appreciate the discussion which Representative Zeiser had about safety. And on your desks or maybe in your recycle bins or wherever you've put it, I distributed a piece of information about safety called Eye Injuries, Recent Data and Trends in the United States. And if you look at page number 2, it talks about items that cause damage to eyes. And if you look at the list, you'll see projectiles such as flying debris or nails. They're 17.9%. These would be construction items, that type of thing. Blunt objects like tools are 13.3%. Fingers, fists, and elbows, 10%. And it goes on down. And when you get to the very bottom of the list, other than other or unknown, you get to fireworks at 0.68%. And those are all fireworks together, not just bottle rockets. I've tried to find the statistics on bottle rockets alone. I've been unable to do so. But this document shows that of all eye injuries, 0.68% are from fireworks as a whole. And by the way, this information is from the American Academy of Ophthalmology. This is a document from their website. So if we want to go ahead and talk about safety of items, maybe we should have a discussion about those items ahead of it on the list. But now let's talk about the real reason this bill is in front of us. Today, in North Dakota, bottle rockets are a perfectly legal item. Let me repeat that. They're perfectly legal. Any one of us can purchase them and use them, but we just cannot purchase them here in the state unless we go to somewhere such as the Native American reservation where they're exempt from the provision currently in law. I spoke to a retailer in South Dakota who is right across the border from North Dakota, and he said, "I'd like to thank you for what the North Dakota legislature did several years ago. You've done more to the bottom line for my business than you can imagine, because people are leaving our state, going to South Dakota to purchase bottle rockets, and while they're there, they're purchasing the rest of their fireworks along with it. You can also go on the internet. Any one of you has a computer in front of you, and you can purchase these items and have them shipped into the state. So right now, we are debating a perfectly legal product that this legislative assembly several years ago said we're going to keep legal, and the bill that originally came in 2009 never exempted sales. It just talked about, or exempted the use. It just talked about the sales of them. We've never had the debate on whether or not we should have possession or use, but only whether or not our retailers should be burdened with the fact that they're not able to sell them. So, Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly, I would hope you would give some serious consideration to allowing our retailers to sell a perfectly legal product like the ones above this in this list, which also may cause harm. But, you know, we're all responsible people. The testimony we've heard in many cases is about people who've used the product in the wrong way. I think that's something that we all should be taking into consideration when we use these types of products. And I would urge the Assembly to give this bill a green vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further discussion. Representative Becker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too had bottle rocket fights in my youth, but I'm not ashamed to say that. Actually, I'm kind of proud to say it. And it's interesting how somehow we as legislators now are so much more wise than the legislators of the past. And we know better to take away those freedoms we had in our youth, to do things that might have been a little foolish or reckless or crazy. And that's kind of the beauty of youth, is you learn by doing silly things. But I know sometimes maybe with evolution, legislators become so much more wise. This bill and the law that it intends to repeal are pretty inconsequential. Yet here I am standing to speak because of its very significance and importance to me. There is a chasm between the significance of the practical implications of this law and the philosophical underpinnings of this law. What I'm really talking about here is so much more than this bill. Practically speaking, this law is pretty silly, actually. The assumption is that bottle rockets can cause injuries to the eyes and it can start fires. And they can. So we make a law which prevents selling them, but doesn't prevent possessing or using them. Today I looked online and I found that I can buy bottle rockets. They're about 2.5 cents a piece for the cheap ones. The Dominator Whistling Moon Travel with Report is $4.80 for a gross. Those are pretty good ones. So how is this a good law? I defy anyone to tell me how this is a good law. Laws like these come about because we are loath to give up our freedoms and yet so very, very quick to make compromise. Is giving up half of freedom really any different than giving up a whole freedom? We need to show courage in our convictions for this bill and for the bills that come after it. If you believe that it is the job of the state to minimize injuries and protect people from them, then vote do not pass on this bill. And then I suggest you also vote to outlaw swing sets, outlaw swimming in rivers and lakes, outlaw swimming pools, definitely outlaw power tools for the elderly. You'll keep me from having to go to the emergency room many, many nights, so please do that. I would also outlaw playing outside during a thunderstorm and probably outlaw kick the can. So the heart of the issue is this: why are we here? I believe that we are here first and foremost to protect people's rights. Secondly, I believe we're here to provide essential services and infrastructure without wasting taxpayer money. We are not here to protect people from injuries, nor are we here to protect people from poor decision making. We are here to ensure the maximum amount of freedom to individuals so long as it does not encroach on the rights of others. Please, know what you believe and then stand by it. If you believe we are the mommies and daddies of the people of North Dakota and we need to protect them from injuries, vote red. If you believe the nanny state is repulsive and you want to preserve freedom, all freedom, even minuscule, seemingly inconsequential freedom like this silly bill that we're talking about, then vote green. And more importantly, I hope we can continue with the strength of our convictions and the belief that the nanny state does not serve freedom for the remainder of this session. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Carls.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With all due respect, my mom did used to tell me, don't run with a sharp stick or a pair of scissors. You could poke your eye out. And it's my belief that because of the way bottle rockets are designed, there's a high propensity to shoot them horizontally. And we're not protecting the rights of those that want to shoot them off. We're trying to protect the innocent bystander that's hit in the eye with one of these. And I've seen them with my own eyes shooting these off horizontally across the street in the city of Bismarck. This was years ago when they were still legal. I ask you, please, to uphold the committee and do not pass. Vote red on this. Thank you.
Representative Zeiser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to say a few more things. If we're so foolish as to consider prohibiting pop bottle rockets, why have 39 states and the District of Columbia have done so? That's 80% of the states. They've done so, I think, based on science and based on doctors providing advice that it's not the people in working in a setting where chips of metal are shooting off. You can't prevent that. But this is, we're trying to prevent the innocent bystander, as Representative Carls pointed out, from getting hit by pop bottle rockets. That's, you shoot it out and it goes almost 90 degrees or to the right or to the left or whatever. It's those people that are often the victims of pop bottle rockets. The other thing I want to say is when we heard the hearing, There were no sellers of fireworks or pop bottle rockets present, not a one. So nobody came to the Capitol to complain about this bill or protest the bill. I think that's pretty important to discuss. So again, I'm going to ask that you vote red. You know, granted, we can all say here this is frivolous, but we don't have, I don't see patches over our eyes here. But if somebody maybe had a patch over their eye, I think they'd look at it a little bit differently. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Representative B. Koppelman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think Representative Zeiser made a good point about this, and that is that we need to decide whether or not we need to regulate the misuse of products. People don't get injured by the proper use of these products; they get injured by the misuse of these products. And if this was motivated by the sellers of these products, they would have been there in droves to testify and say, please change this. But it wasn't. It was a matter of freedom. If we would, in our cities, where a lot of the innocent bystanders would be, I know we heard from a few committee members that said, oh, I remember once when some fireworks came across the street and got near us, or maybe were in risk of causing harm. Most of our cities don't allow the use of bottle rockets, or any fireworks for that matter, within city limits. And if we follow those laws that are currently on the books, that eliminates almost all risk to innocent bystanders. And then if we factor in that things are properly used, and if we act as parents to our children, like I do, and maybe require some things like you can't use fireworks by yourself, or if we think it's appropriate, you must have eyewear, or if we think it's appropriate, let them do what they want to do. But that's our job as parents, and I would encourage you to allow parents to do that. And I again just want to echo what has kind of been said previously, that it's amazing any of us survived, eye patches or not, in this chamber, and are still here to talk about it today without having these sort of laws on the books. So thank you. I encourage you to vote green.
Representative Thorson, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will be brief. As to retailers not being in the room during the hearing, I've spoken to them, and I cannot answer as to why they did not come to testify. Perhaps they thought that after the Assembly made its decision the last time, that we weren't going to change this, but I've assured them that I would bring this forward. I have also spoken to many, many consumers in the state who've said, why is it that I have to go out of state to buy this product when I can still use it? And so again, just keep that in your decision-making process. If we want to have a debate on safety, I certainly would look forward to that amongst this and many other items. But this is something which the retailers have a burden upon them, and I would hope we would vote green on the bill. Thank you once again, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Zeiser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And would Representative Thorson yield to a question, please?
Representative Thorson, would you yield to a question?
Mr. Speaker, I will.
Representative Zeiser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Representative Thorson. Do you recall in 2007, or was it 2009, where they actually did have the fact that it was illegal to use, and that ended up getting removed from the bill before it came to the floor?
Representative Thorson.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Zeiser, in fact, the bill which was passed by this Assembly in 2009 came across from the Senate where it was adopted, and when it came to the House, it did not have any language discussing the use or possession, and it never was in the bill as it was in the Senate. The only change the Senate made to that bill was a small part of language where it said that if you read the language now, and I had it in front of me a moment ago, but I do not now, it says may sell or offer to sell. I believe they just added the words or offer to, but there was never in that bill any language discussing possession or use. So we have only ever debated the sale of the product.
Mr. Speaker, may I continue?
You may continue, Representative Zeiser.
Perhaps that was in the 2007 session, based on some information that I had heard, because I know it was on, bills were submitted in all of those years. But the bottom line here is innocent bystanders, in so many cases, it's not a matter of use or the ability to sell. These things, I mean, do you go out and intentionally put yourself at risk if you're a grown adult. Most of the cases the ophthalmologist talked about were cases where people had actually were engaged in risky behavior, whether that was juveniles or, in some cases, like we like to call ourselves, adults. It's a dangerous thing, and I guess we try to eliminate something that has a high propensity to cause problems. And clearly, a pop bottle rocket blowing up in your eye is not a pleasant experience for anybody, whether you're 4 years old or you're 40. So I just hope that we would vote red and move on and be like the other 39 states. They have to, if they want to do pop bottle rockets, they have to go probably a lot further than to across one boundary line to one other state. They have to go in many cases through several states to get to where they can buy one. So I would hope that we would be consistent with the rest of the country and not allow pop bottle rockets for sale. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the House has before it for final consideration House Bill 1257. The clerk will open the key and you may record your vote. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Representative Sanford, Representative Owens. The key will be closed. The clerk will take the record. Final vote shows 53 yea, 37 nay, 4 absent and not voting. House Bill 1257 is declared passed. Continuing on